In March 2021, deep within the breathtaking expanse of Kenya's Rift Valley, a disaster unfolded that would capture international attention and spark heated debate. The Lolldaiga Conservancy, renowned as a sanctuary for diverse wildlife and a vital ecosystem, was suddenly engulfed in a raging inferno. The flames swept across the grasslands, threatening not only the animals but the delicate balance of nature itself. The source of the blaze was traced to a British military training exercise gone wrong. What began as routine drills quickly escalated into a massive wildfire, burning uncontrollably for days and leaving behind a trail of devastation that spanned thousands of acres. The aftermath was stark: scorched earth, smoldering remains, and a landscape forever altered. But the fire's impact went far beyond environmental destruction. It ignited a fierce debate about military responsibility, the lingering shadows of colonialism, and the rights of local communities. The British Army Training Unit Kenya, or Batuk, suddenly found itself at the center of a storm. As the world watched, questions mounted about oversight, accountability, and the true cost of foreign military presence on Kenyan soil. For the people living near Lolldaiga, the fire was not just a distant headline, it was a personal catastrophe. Crops and livelihoods destroyed, health put at risk by smoke and ash, and daily routines thrown into chaos. The incident laid bare the dangers of conducting international military exercises in ecologically sensitive areas, raising urgent questions about the balance between security interests and environmental stewardship. As headlines blazed across the globe, the United Kingdom was forced to confront the far-reaching consequences of its actions abroad. Politicians, activists, and citizens alike demanded answers and accountability. For those living in the shadow of Lolldaiga, the fire was a daily ordeal: thick smoke choking the air, wildlife fleeing in panic, and an overwhelming sense of uncertainty about what the future would hold. In the end, the Lolldaiga fire became more than just a local tragedy. It stood as a powerful symbol of broken trust, the urgent need for justice, and the ongoing struggle to protect both people and the land they call home. How did it start? In the heart of Kenya's Lolldaiga Conservancy, a vast expanse of golden grasslands and rolling hills, no one could have predicted that a single moment would set off a chain reaction with consequences felt around the world. It wasn't a complex operation, just a group of British soldiers, far from home, setting up a simple camp stove as part of their routine training. But in a place as dry and brittle as Lolldaiga, even the smallest oversight can be dangerous. When the stove was accidentally knocked over, it was enough to change everything. In the parched grass, a single spark leapt to life, quickly transforming into a raging inferno. The fire raced across the savannah, devouring everything in its path, fueled by strong winds and the relentless African sun. As the flames spread, social media poured gasoline on the crisis. A soldier's Snapchat post, bragging about setting 12,000 acres on fire, went viral within hours, igniting a storm of outrage both locally and internationally. What might have been seen as a tragic accident was now a public relations nightmare. The viral post amplified anger across Kenya, with communities demanding justice and accountability for the devastation. The fire spread with terrifying speed, overwhelming the initial efforts of firefighters and local volunteers. Despite their bravery, the inferno was relentless, consuming precious wildlife habitat and threatening nearby villages. As the smoke rose, tough questions followed. Were the soldiers truly prepared for the risks of operating in such a fragile environment? Had they received proper training on fire safety, or was this a disaster waiting to happen? Was there a comprehensive fire plan in place, or had safety protocols been overlooked in the rush of military exercises? The Royal Military Police quickly launched an official investigation, but for many, it was too late. The damage, both to the land and to public trust, had already been done. The story of the camp stove became infamous, a symbol of how a tiny mistake can spiral into catastrophe. It was a harsh lesson in risk, responsibility, and the unpredictable power of nature. Military drills in fragile environments demand constant vigilance and respect for the land. Every action, no matter how small, carries weight. The Lolldaiga fire was a stark reminder. Even minor oversights can devastate entire communities and ecosystems, leaving scars that may never fully heal. As the world watched the investigation unfold, the demand for answers and accountability grew louder. The crisis had become a global story, shining a spotlight on the delicate balance between human activity and nature. The crisis had begun, and its impact would echo for years to come, a somber warning of what can happen when caution is cast aside. The fire's devastation was immediate and far-reaching, leaving a once thriving landscape transformed into a barren wasteland almost overnight. The flames swept across the Lolldaiga Conservancy with terrifying speed, consuming everything in their path and leaving behind a haunting silence. Thousands of acres of vital habitat were lost, disrupting the delicate balance of the ecosystem. Wildlife, once abundant, was suddenly displaced, forced to flee their homes and seek refuge elsewhere. The loss of vegetation and shelter pushed animals into nearby farms and villages, creating new challenges for both people and wildlife. Elephants and other animals, desperate to escape the flames, trampled crops and homes as they moved through unfamiliar territory. The sudden influx of wildlife into human settlements led to increased conflict, with both animals and people suffering the consequences. For local families, the loss of harvest and property was financially crippling. Many had invested their entire livelihoods into their land, only to see it destroyed in a matter of hours. The emotional toll was just as severe, as families faced the daunting task of rebuilding from nothing. The smoke blanketed villages for days, causing widespread respiratory problems and raising long-term health concerns. Children and the elderly were especially vulnerable, with many experiencing persistent coughing and difficulty breathing. The air, once fresh and clean, became a constant reminder of the disaster. Unexploded military ordnance left behind by training exercises posed new dangers, injuring residents and children who stumbled upon them. The threat of hidden explosives added another layer of fear and uncertainty to daily life, making recovery even more difficult. The land was scarred, the air polluted, and daily life became hazardous. Simple routines like fetching water or tending to livestock now carried new risks, as the community struggled to adapt to a changed environment. The fire's legacy was one of environmental ruin, economic hardship, and persistent health risks. The damage extended far beyond the immediate aftermath, affecting every aspect of life in Lolldaiga. For the people of Lolldaiga, recovery would be slow and uncertain. Rebuilding homes, replanting fields, and restoring hope would take years, and the scars, both visible and invisible, would remain for generations. The disaster exposed the fragile balance between military activity and community safety, raising urgent questions about responsibility and the need for better safeguards to protect both people and nature. The scars, both physical and emotional, would last for generations, shaping the memories and futures of those who lived through the fire. The Lolldaiga fire was more than a blaze. It was a crisis for an entire region, a stark reminder of the interconnectedness of people, wildlife, and the land they share. Seeking justice, over 7,700 Kenyans filed a lawsuit against the UK government. The case was massive. Villages united to demand compensation for lost property, health, and livelihoods. Proving every claim was daunting. How do you link a cough or a ruined field to a fire years later? The legal battle dragged on, with claimants facing the might of a G7 nations legal team. The imbalance was stark: rural farmers versus government lawyers. Ultimately, the claimants chose negotiation over a risky, drawn-out trial. An out-of-court settlement offered a guaranteed, if imperfect, outcome. The decision was pragmatic, secure relief now, rather than gamble on an uncertain verdict. The fight for justice was exhausting, but the community pressed on. The settlement would not erase the damage, but it was a step toward closure. The legal journey revealed the challenges of holding powerful actors accountable. After years of struggle, the UK agreed to pay £2.90 million, nearly $4 million, to the affected Kenyans. Over 7,700 claimants would share the compensation, covering property loss, health issues, and disrupted lives. The deal was reached through negotiation, not a court ruling. The British High Commission called it a fair resolution, acknowledging the suffering caused. Lawyer Kevin Kubai described the settlement as the best possible outcome, given the legal hurdles. The money offered some closure and support, even if it couldn't undo the harm. For many, it was a milestone, a rare moment of accountability from a foreign power. The funds would help families rebuild, pay medical bills, or relocate if needed. The settlement marked the end of a long legal battle, but not the end of the story. On the ground, the reaction was mixed. Relief, but also disappointment. Divided among thousands, the payout meant about $170 per person, far less than many had lost. For families facing medical bills and destroyed homes, it felt inadequate. Some victims planned protests, calling the settlement a token gesture. Local leaders argued the real issue was ongoing military training in sensitive areas. Activists demanded Batuk move its exercises to prevent future disasters. Even the claimant's lawyer admitted the outcome was imperfect, but better than risking everything in court. The settlement highlighted the limits of mass litigation. Sometimes compromise is the only option. For many, true justice would mean policy change, not just a payout. The fight for accountability was far from over. The UK government expressed regret, accepted responsibility, and called the payment a fair offer. But they stopped short of admitting legal liability in court, a strategic move to avoid future lawsuits. The settlement was framed as a voluntary gesture, not a legal defeat. The UK pledged to continue military training in Kenya, citing the site's strategic value. They promised support for environmental restoration, but training would go on. Official statements avoided mention of disciplinary action for the soldiers involved. The focus was on moving forward, repairing relations, and maintaining the military partnership. Some questions remained unanswered, but the UK's priority was clear: pay, restore, and continue operations. The fire reignited old tensions between Kenya and its former colonial ruler. Batuk's presence is a legacy of colonialism, stirring pride and resentment. Past allegations of misconduct by British soldiers have fueled mistrust in local communities. Yet Batuk is also a major economic force, providing jobs and supporting local businesses. This creates a complex dependency: economic benefits versus social and environmental risks. The fire brought these issues to the surface, forcing a public debate on the UK-Kenya Defence Pact. The incident was a reminder: the relationship is about more than strategy and money. It's about justice and respect. The Lolldaiga fire exposed the fragile balance between partnership and sovereignty. With the settlement paid, the future remains uncertain. Restoring the burned ecosystem will take decades. The scars are permanent. The UK military will continue training in Kenya, but under greater scrutiny. Stricter safety protocols and better community engagement are expected. Local mistrust lingers, and activists will keep pushing for accountability. The compensation brought closure, but not full satisfaction. The Lolldaiga fire is a cautionary tale. One accident exposed deep wounds and tested diplomatic ties. The hope is for real change, safer practices, more respect, and a new approach to foreign military presence. The Rift Valley will remember this story, a lesson written in smoke and ash. The world is watching to see what comes next.